there's one type of anti-Zionist who is not an anti-Jew bigot. I'm not Jewish, but I think Jews are cool. I also know some cool-ass Muslims. I'm pro-Israel, but that doesn't mean anti-Palestinian, and it doesn't mean anti-Muslim either. Most modern Muslims don't take the stuff literally about killing Jews. Here are the three possibilities for the kind of anti-Zionism that might apply to you if you identify as someone who's an anti-Zionist. Possibility number one, you had the wrong idea about what anti-Zionism meant, and you think it's actually okay for Israel to exist. You just don't like the policies of the Israeli government. Possibility number two, you really do think the state of Israel should not exist. And possibility number three is that you are the only kind of anti-Zionist who is not anti-Semitic. Because remember what I said, there's one type of anti-Zionist who is not an anti-Jew bigot. Let's look at possibility number one. You had the wrong idea about what anti-Zionism meant, and you think it's actually okay for Israel to exist. You just don't like the policies of the Israeli government. So let's talk about the Israeli government policies. We can start with Israel's policies related to the October 7th war. If you believe the numbers that we're getting from Hamas, it's possible 45,000 people have been killed in Gaza. 45,000. But what would you say if someone asked you to explain the war in Sudan? Since 2023, 150,000 people have been killed in the civil war in Sudan. 150,000 is actually more than 45,000. In Yemen, the death toll is around 300,000 people. 300,000 is also more than 45,000. In Syria, the death toll is almost 580,000 people. 580,000 is more than 45,000. Now, why are we talking about all this? Because I want to make you notice that your Free Palestine friends are failing to even take interest in other wars in nearby nations that are way worse. So you have to start to wonder about that. Like, hey, what's this fixation on blaming the Jews? What's going on here? You start to think about it. Doesn't it seem strange to you that people want to hate on Israel for maybe 45,000 deaths when right next door the death toll in Syria and Yemen totals close to 1 million deaths, and 1 million is more than 45,000. Sneaky propagandists are tricking your friends. Now let's do a few more. There's a civil war in Libya. Any interest? What about the Tigray War? Any interest in the Tigray War? Your Free Palestine friends don't talk about these. How about the Boko Haram insurgency? I'm going to surprise you with a pop quiz right now. The Boko Haram insurgency. Where is it happening? What's the country? The answer is Nigeria. If you didn't know the answer, it might be because Boko Haram doesn't involve any Jews. Here's a war you do know about, the Ukraine war. To keep innocent civilians safe, Poland, Romania, Hungary, Moldova, and Slovakia all accepted refugees from Ukraine. But what about the innocent civilians in Gaza? Are any neighboring countries accepting refugees from Gaza? No. Why are 0 Arab states accepting refugees from Gaza? That's a riddle for us to solve. I'll give you a hint. It's because none of the Arab states that hate Israel want to stop civilians from getting killed in Gaza. If they did, they would at least accept a few women or children or old people. How about just 5 or 10? No. The 22 nations of the Arab League refuse to accept any refugees from Gaza. The enemies of Israel don't care about something called freeing Palestine. See, that's for you and your friends. They give you that so you can feel good about yourselves. The enemies of Israel, this is key. They do not care about something called freeing Palestine. The idea of freeing Palestine has a secret meaning. What it means is destroy Israel. That brings us to the next type of anti-Zionist. People who really do think Israel should not exist. Some people think Israel should not exist because they're Muslims and they take their faith seriously. And according to Islam, the world is divided into 3 parts. Israel is in part of the world where Muslims think it's supposed to be the territory of Islam. They don't care that the Ottoman Muslims decided to side with Germany in World War I, trying to acquire more land, and then they lost. They lost the region called Palestine. Research yourself to see about the way Islam's 3 divisions of the world are related to the Israel-Palestine conflict. But that's another example of a reason a Muslim might be an anti-Zionist. But you might be an anti-Zionist for a totally different reason. It might be because you heard about something called that Nakba in 1948. But I told you just now, and you can look into it, that the Nakba was not caused by Jews creating Israel. It was caused by Jews as an ethnic minority getting attacked by the ethnic majority that had them outnumbered and surrounded. They were not able to drive the Jews out or kill them, so they call it a catastrophe, and that's the Nakba. And the word Nakba comes from a 1948 book by someone, Konstantin Zurich, who's an Arab nationalist, who was really upset about how unprepared those 7 Arab nations were when they attacked the Jews. And when he explained what the Nakba was, what the catastrophe was, it was something like 7 Arab nations attack the Jews and they stop impotent before their enemy and turn on their heels. He was lamenting how they were unprepared and they lost. The book where he coins the term Nakba, in that book he never mentions Arabs as Palestinians. Never once does he use the word Palestinian to refer to the Arabs in the region. And finally, now we have the third possibility. You might be the kind of anti-Zionist that is not anti-Semitic. There's one type of anti-Zionist that's not anti-Semitic, and here's what it is. If you're Jewish and your interpretation of Jewish scripture is that you shouldn't have a Jewish state yet, not until the end times, then that's not anti-Semitic. That's just an interpretation of scripture. But if you and I are not Jewish, and we think that the world has only one Jewish state, and we think that, nope, all that land should be for the Muslims that don't have any tolerance for the Jews being in that land, even though the outcome of World War I established that that land was under the control of the Allies, and this doesn't belong to them in any sense. If it belongs to the people who live there, well, the Jews lived there too. The Jews have always been there. So it belongs not more to one group than another group, and that's why I compare it to a town full of white folk and then a black family, and then the Klan burning a cross on their front lawn trying to intimidate them and scare them out because of intolerance toward a minority group. That's the way to think about it. That's why anti-Zionism usually is anti-Semitism, because either it's outright hatred for Jews because of a religious belief that the Holy Land is supposed to belong to the Muslims now, because that's what Muhammad said, or it's because people were careless enough to blame Israel before they got all the facts. So if we're accidentally letting ourselves slide into a kind of anti-Semitism, which is a stupid bigotry against Jewish people, then right now is the time to stop, turn on our heels, and go in a different direction and not get played by sneaky propagandists.